It's 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night, and where else would I be but here with you? DJ Stutz here with Little Hearts Academy and Imperfect Heroes podcast. And today I want to share what we're talking about on this week's episode on the podcast. So if you want to go to the website, hi Carolyn, oh, so good to see you. If you want to go directly to the website just for the podcast, it is www.imperfectheroespodcast.com. And there you're going to find this week's episode as well as all of our past episodes. Oh, hi Raylene, it's good to see you too. As well as all of our past episodes. And then you can also click in and get information on who my guests are and learn more about them. You can super easy just leave a rating and a review, and all you have to do is just click on ratings, and then there's a little thing that says leave a rating. You do that, you click on 5 stars, of course, and then you can write a little blurb about the podcast or that episode that you're listening to. You can leave as many reviews as you want, so if you wanted to rate and review all of my episodes, you're certainly welcome to do so. So that's kind of a fun thing, and that's it again, www.imperfectheroespodcast.com. So this week we are talking about something that is just super near and dear to my heart, and that is adoption. So my guest this week is one of our imperfect heroes, and her name is Hilary Ableser, and Hilary is married. She has had 2 children, wonderful kids, but felt like there was something more. Something was missing in their family. And she talked to her husband. It's kind of a fun story if you listen in on it, how they kind of got to where they both were agreeing, okay, yeah, this is something we want to do. For any of you who have been listening for very long, or maybe you're new, you will know that I am the mother of 5. My youngest daughter, who is now 26, is adopted. And we adopted her out of the foster care system. And that's a whole nother story. And the exciting thing about adoptions, as it is with any other kid that you're going to get, right, is that each story is individual. And some stories, things happened a little easier. Other stories, things were a little harder. Sometimes, you have more of an adventure once things are moving along after the baby comes, right? Well, my baby, she likes to joke around. She says, I was 12 years overdue because she was 12 when we got her. Well, Hilary Ableser, when they got their beautiful daughter, Ava Lynn, she was 3 years old. And just to let you know, Hilary, I met her because I was in Reno, which is where she lives, and I was visiting my daughter Rocky, and Rocky was telling me that her oldest son is Sylvan, and she said, oh, Sylvan's crazy about this cute little girl at school, and her mom's one of my best friends. So great. And so we wound up kind of meeting each other. The kids had a play date. And so, oh my gosh, Ava is gorgeous. She is just has this beautiful skin tone and this beautiful black hair. And my grandson, Sylvan, kind of looks like an albino. He is as blonde as they come, very fair skin. And so the two of them are quite a pair together. And in fact, while I was there, it was funny because Hilary said, oh my gosh, we were at the store and Ava found this necklace and she was so excited to give it to Sylvan. Sylvan is now thrilled about anything China. He is just really interested in China. He's 6 years old. So, expert at this point, I'm sure. But Ava was always intrigued because Sylvan can draw the yin and yang. And so this was a necklace, and the yin, like best friend's necklace, only one side is the yin, one side is the yang. And so she wanted Sylvan to have the dark side so that he would always remember her dark hair. And she wanted the white side so that she could always remember Sylvan's white hair. Kind of thoughtful for kids so young. Anyway, I just thought that was adorable. Well, Ava's story is just really cool. And I hope that you'll listen to get in on all of it. And Hilary just has so much enthusiasm and excitement, you know. But one of the things, and it was great talking to her as being an adoptive mom, and also for Hilary, and so we could share kind of our stories and connect. We connected really well in Reno, and I realized that I want to tell her story. I want her story out there for people, because it's not only just for people who are thinking of adopting, but it's also a story for if you have a friend that's adopted, or maybe a family member that has adopted, so that you can understand more about what they're going through, what they've been through, what might be coming down the road, and you know, just kind of be part of that whole thing. I'm very pro-life, and I have such respect for young women who make that choice to give a child up for adoption rather than terminate their life. And I am so grateful that I have my Noel. I have, in fact, my sister adopted a little guy, and now he's grown up and is an adult now, but I was actually his foster mom for a while, and then my sister wound up adopting him. And so that's kind of cool. And I've got cousins who have adopted out of Taiwan and out of China. We have some more out of China and Vietnam. And so, and then I have a niece that has adopted, you know, out of the U.S., and it was those more traditional baby adoption. And they waited for years. And she is such a sweet person and a sweet mom. Her husband is such a gentle guy, and they just couldn't have kids. And what a great gift, not only to my niece or whomever the adoptive family is, and then to the child as well. Everybody wins, you know. If a young mom isn't ready to have a baby, there are so many people who are just dying and waiting to welcome a child into their home. And there's so many different ways to get kids into your home. All of them, I will tell you, are expensive. It's just, you know, there's legal costs, there's background checks, there's home inspections. There's just a ton of things that have to do. You have to take all these classes, and so it's a real process. And it's funny that when we started our adoption story, it took us 9 months to get our daughter. In Hilary's case, as you'll learn if you listen to the podcast, that was an 18-month process for them. And they had to do a lot of research on where they were going to adopt from. Different countries have different requirements. And so some countries, they'll require that you have no other children in the home. Not sure why that is, but some countries require that. Some countries require you to come and live in that country for anywhere from 6 weeks to, it could be 6 months, before they'll let you take a child home. Of course, there are a ton of background checks, and you have to, I don't know that I could do this anymore, but you have to be able to give them every address that you've ever lived at as an adult. And they're going to go back and do all of these checks. You're paying for all of these checks as you go along. If you're adopting out of foster care, it's a different story, and maybe I'll do a show on another day on adopting out of foster care. I think that's a very valuable opportunity, but you need to be ready for that. And but for international adoptions, one of the best things that you can do, and Hilary talks about how she went about finding her agency, but having an agency to do it. She said it was worth every penny, and they literally hold your hand as you go through all the processes. And so now you've got to do this, and the next step is this, and the next step is this. And so you're going through all of those things. And you're really looking at not only the country that you're adopting out of, but even the orphanage that you're adopting out of. And it was interesting that Hilary mentioned, and I had no idea on this, but that in Reno, Nevada, up until the mid-1970s, there was an orphanage in Reno, and the kids just kind of grew up in the orphanage, went to the high school. It was close to the high school there, and you know, Reno's now much, much bigger than it was in the 70s. But orphanages have been a part of the United States history for a long time, and they're not really not anymore. There might be a few here and there in the country, but not very much. And another thing, and this was something when Russ, my husband Russ, and I decided to adopt, was that we didn't want to get a baby. We were older. Our kids were pretty much gone. Our youngest son, Christian, you hear a lot about that boy, don't you? He had actually just graduated from high school. And the other thing was that babies have a very easy time getting adopted. People are crawling on top of each other trying to adopt babies. But, you know, these older kids that come out of, whether it's a foreign place or it's in foster care or whatever their story is, some of these older kids really struggle and they don't have much of a chance to get adopted. And so Hilary and her husband were very aware of that, and so they thought having someone that would be close to the age of their DNA kids would help and make her part of the family a little easier. And Hilary does an amazing job of explaining some of the things that they did to prepare their DNA kids for the new sister coming. And even before they knew what country that they were adopting out of, they had the name Ava in their mind. That's what they wanted to name. And they didn't know what country that she was going to come out of, but they started talking to the kids who were, I think, 3 and 5 at the time. They started talking to the kids about their sister Ava and how she was somewhere in the world, and they would tell stories about what do you think she's doing, and then as she became identified and they knew that they were going to get Ava, it's not like, oh, we have a baby for you, come and get her. It's a long process. I mean, and there's visas and you know, of course, passports and all of that, and it's kind of tricky going through all of the legal steps for a foreign country and then coming in and having completely different legal steps for the United States. And one of the things that Hilary and her family decided to do was Ava was legally adopted in China, but then when they brought her home, they went through the process again in the United States and had her legally adopted again, but in the United States. Just to cover, you don't have to do that. It's not something that is required, but she just wanted to have every base covered. And isn't that sweet that she was so concerned that she wanted to have all of her bases covered. Another thing that when you're adopting, and especially even if you adopt a baby, you know, out of an agency or whatever, as they get older, they're going to start wondering, especially if they look different from the rest of the family, they're going to be very aware of that. They're going to have questions about, you know, why am I adopted? And why didn't my mommy want me? And it's not a matter of whether their mommy wanted them or not. It's that their mommy was very brave and put you in a place where we could love you and she could grow up and get her education and move on and have her life. But that was the hardest thing in the world for her to do, was to give you up. And we're so grateful that she was so brave to do that. I have absolute respect for women, and I know a few in my life, in my little circle, that have given children up for adoption. And it's something that has been difficult for them throughout the rest of their lives. and they remember that child, and on birthdays, and all of that. And so it's something that you've really got to consider and be aware of. And there's so many different types of adoptions now. When you go internationally, though, it tends to be because the child is going to be in an entirely different country, and very often they don't know who the DNA mom is. Sometimes they might, but generally these are kids that were just found on the streets, abandoned. And in fact, Hilary talks about how there's a controversy about, hey, Sonny, hi. There's a controversy about whether to change your child's name or not, and do they keep their name that's attached to their nationality? Do you do that? And in Hilary's research, she was also saying that, most of these kids, they're just named by the cop that found them on the street and dropped them off. And that name really doesn't have that strong association with them as it does with maybe you or I, and how we're connected to our name. And so they don't know the real name because the child was abandoned somewhere. And so she didn't have a problem. But, you do you, right? It would be your family, and so you do what's right for you. I know that adopting domestically and out of foster care, and an older child, I know Noelle wanted, that's not her original name, but I know that she wanted to change. That's one of the first things they told us about her. And some of these kids that are a little older, because all the bad things happened to whatever their first name was, and they want that new name to have that clean break and then move on in their lives. And so that's something to consider. I would make sure that once you've decided, yeah, I think we're going to adopt, I would make sure that you are getting all of the information that you can about working with a child of adoption. And there's a ton of good books, and on the episode notes on the podcast, I have a list of some books and stuff that Hilary used. And in fact, her agency that she used adopting out of China actually required her to read certain books, and then there was a list of, you can pick any three or whatever, and so she picked some. But and books are nice, and they give you a lot of information, and they do help, but then life hits you in the face, and sometimes I would really be surprised if there are people who have adopted children and were not surprised by something in growing up and thinking, oh, wow, I wasn't prepared for that, right? Because it happens with DNA kids too. We think we're ready to be parents and we're going to do this great job and we're working really hard to meet their needs. And all of a sudden something happens and it's like, wait, how did that happen? Whoa. And so, and it's maybe just a little more deeper. Is that proper English? Anyway, it's a little deeper when you're dealing with an adoptive child. And so you want to make sure that you've got the team that's available. In Hilary's case, her husband is a therapist and has worked with people, and so he knew a lot of what to do. But not only that, with him being a therapist, he has connections to other therapists that they could, turn to and move forward with in helping things. They are expecting, Ava's just 5, almost 6, and they're eyes wide open, and they know that there can be some problems down the road, and they have no idea what those are going to be, just as you wouldn't with any DNA kids that you have. Kids are going to have problems, but sometimes our adoptive kids do have some special, deeper needs, and so we need to make sure that we have the foundational understanding that we can have, but we also need to have a team of people around us that can help support us and just kind of take us for a break when we need it. Be a friend to our little guy when they first come. When they first got Ava, it was nice because her husband had lived in China doing an internship when he was younger and actually spoke Mandarin. And so it really helped when they got Ava. because then that helped with the language barrier. If you're going to adopt internationally, that's something to kind of keep in mind is, you know, how much of the language do you need to know to be comforting to them, and then helping them acclimate to their new country and their new language. Another thing, and I thought it was great that Hilary brought up, was really investigating the orphanage that you're adopting out of. And so she found, when they found this one, they saw that she comes from one of the more wealthy cities in China, in southern China. And so there were a lot of people who would donate money to this orphanage, and the orphanage really had some better child to adult ratios, and the children were getting a lot of personal attention. And actually, when they went to get Ava, and you know, the worker put Ava in her arms for the first time, and Ava cried. And then they take her, you know, you sign all these papers and you take her home for the night, and then the next day you had to come back, and then you finish everything and it's finalized. So I guess you have the night to decide if this is going to work, right? And Ava cried. She wanted her caretaker, and that was really a good thing, that she was so attached enough to that caretaker that it gave her stress, you know, to think about being away from her. Where if they're not attached to anyone, then you start having issues with something called reactive attachment disorder, which can be fairly common in kids that are not adopted out at birth. And they may, for whatever reason, have, you know, a history that can be tough. So I have a friend that I know, she adopted foreign, and this little guy really had a rough life the first year and a half or so. And he's an adorable kid. Oh, I love that kid. But he is impulsive. He has trouble with sometimes attaching properly. You can see him trying to just say the right thing, because I'm supposed to say this, but it's not that. He's really building that relationship that he needs with other peers and with other adults. And so there are a lot of psychological things that you're going to want to look at and try to be as prepared as you can for that. But you know, the truth is, kids are kids and they're going to do what they're going to do. And so anyway, and Sunny, I know that you've adopted, and if you have any things you want to type in the comments and make a comment, that would be great too. But so it's just a lovely, lovely story. And I think that she has a lot worth listening to. And even if you don't have a child that's adopted, you probably have friends that have adopted or family members that have adopted. And this podcast is really going to help you think about how you can be of a support to them, because really adoptive parents need that added support. And also to think about the DNA kids too, and watching how that blends in. And that can be kind of exciting, making sure that all works. You know, it's not the Brady Bunch, and it's not that they all come together and they all just love each other and it's all going to work out well. And sometimes it works out great. I have a niece that she's adopted 2 children, one from China, and I think the other one's Taiwan, but I'm not sure. Anyway, and the one, super easy, not just the normal problems you would expect with a kid growing up. Easy, fun. The second one, though, had traumatic issues, and they are dealing with reactive attachment disorders, and their ability to make choices and decisions in a proper way, to be able to look at other people and have some empathy for what they're doing, and understanding how your or their decisions affect other people. And so that can be a common thing that adoptive kids are struggling with, and they need a lot of help with. They need a lot of understanding. They need those firm but loving boundaries. And so that's where we are. I hope you'll listen to it. It's such a great episode. And Hilary, man, if there was ever a cheerleader for international adoption, it's Hilary. That's for sure. And so she just has so much positive outlook, a ton of energy. But then as you get listening to her, you also see that she has her eyes open, and she understands that, there's going to be some things that you've got to watch out for. And there are things that they're currently working on with her. And but like I said, I've met this little girl, and she's just wonderful, and she's such a good friend to my grandson, and Hilary is a good friend to my daughter. And so I was really glad to have the opportunity to meet her and to kind of bump it. It was very serendipitous to get to meet her and see that she had this wonderful story. And she's such a great example of what an imperfect hero is. That parent that is continually trying and understands that they don't have all the answers and is willing to learn. So, awesome possum, right? Next week, we will be, oh my gosh, yeah. Next week, I am talking to, his name is Mayan Malkin, and he is from Israel. And he has a program to help parents teach their children how to resolve relationship issues. And so, and this will work with kids as young as 3. And we're talk about how he came about working through his relationship with his own father that had been strained for most of his life. And at the age of 30, it came to such a giant blow up that they couldn't even look at each other. They didn't speak for over a year. So they went from that point to now becoming amazing, friends. And he loves his dad. And in fact, it was kind of fun when I asked him, my famous ending question, how would you define a successful parent? He said, I think of my dad. He's an imperfect hero. And so to go from where you couldn't even be in the same room with him to having those kinds of emotions is just amazing. And so next Monday, we'll be hearing his story, and I'll be talking to you about him a little more next Tuesday night. Just so you know, we are working on getting and developing our YouTube channel, which is Little Hearts Academy USA. So we're getting some more of our videos up, and we have, some of the old ones that are up there. And of course, you can always find anything that we do at our website, which is www.littleheartsacademyusa.com. And there's a click that'll take you right to the podcast's webpage. You can go through and look. You can find out about our one-on-one coaching. You can find out about our group coaching. So that's an easy place for you to go to find everything. But we do have the YouTube channel. We do have the podcast page. And I'm just so excited we've got so many great things that are like the irons in the fire, and they're just almost ready. And I'm so anxious that I just want to blurt out all the cool stuff that we have coming up real soon, but I can't. I've got to wait until we're ready and at the right time. But there's some exciting things that are in the fire and almost ready to go. And so I think it's going to be great. So what I want you to do is share. So we've got this little video that you just are watching. It's very easy for you to just click on share and help us get the word out. And that's all I'm asking from you today. So I hope that you have fun. Please feel free to contact me. You can always just leave a comment here on the Facebook page. You can get me on Instagram. I have Little Hearts Academy on Instagram. I also have Imperfect Heroes Podcast on Instagram. You can always get me there and email me, but you've always got the webpage for both Little Hearts Academy USA and for the podcast. Super easy to contact me through that too. So until then, let's find joy in parenting. See you guys later. Bye-bye.